Hello guys, welcome to our newest tutorial. This is Dushan from How to Rhino. And today we're going to be talking about what are some of the most efficient ways to create diagrams and renderings just like this one. This is a project that I've done with my colleagues when we were at university. This is a binary competition project, and I wanted to share here with you the most useful techniques that you can do to create this kind of rendering / diagram for your own projects. So you can see here that we have wooden material, we have a little bit of water, then we have this ground plane, and we have trees and people. So I'm going to show you now how to do this from scratch. So if we go to Rhino, here you will see that this is our project, and these are some of the models that we're going to be using to populate our project here. So we're also going to share a little bit of tips and tricks on how to do this fast with Grasshopper. So first off, I want to create a base plan. So I will simply type plane, and let's make it big like this, for example, and let's put it exactly in the middle. So I'm going to move it from the middle here and move it to 0 coordinate, and also from here to 0, like so. All right, so first let's see how we can create this material, this ground material. So I'm going to open a Vray now. In here, if you go under materials, you will have the ability to create your own materials, but you also have Vray material library. And if you check here under materials, you have some materials under diagrammatic that you can use. So here we're going to be using this particular material called grid 02 10 centimeters, and we're gonna right click, add to scene. And now if I open this material, you will see that we have two types of grids inside. So we have when you open it like this, you can see that it has one set of grids, and then inside of that is a small set of grids. So it's pretty much like nested within it. So what we can do here, we can modify a little bit the color and the reflectivity of this material. So you can see here how we have white lines and we have blackish tones here for the fill color. So we will try to replicate that, and we simply need to go here into first grid, and then let's change this color line. So let's change it from blue to white, like so. And also this color fill will actually supposed to be a little bit darker, something like this. And we can also do this here in this area. So let's create something like this, and color fill here should also be black, like so, so that we get that that effect of that material to look just like we have it here. And in addition to that, we also want to maybe change the thickness of these lines. You can see that they're quite thick. So if you want to change the thickness, you can simply type here, let's say 15 here and 15 here. And now you can see they're like less thick. And with these guys, we can keep them, or we can also modify them. We'll test it to see what is the best option. So once you have that ready, we can maybe change a little bit of reflection, so to make this material a little bit more reflective, and to give it a little bit of reflection glossiness, just like this. So you can see how this material is a little bit reflective. And now we're going to test it. Now we're going to see what's going on. First, we need to apply this, of course, to the surface. So I'm going to right click and use apply to selection. And I'm also going to use texture mapping for this ground plane here. I'll use box mapping, and let's put maybe 3 by 3 by 3. Enter. And now we're going to test to see if this is too big or too small. And then we are going to iterate until we get the correct scaling. Before doing that, let's go to maybe interactive rendering, and let's set the output camera to be something a little bit smaller so we can follow this in real time. So now I just hit the render button, and now we should be seeing our initial render test. Okay, so you can see that we have the grid, but at the moment it's very tiny. So that means that we need to change we need to change the mapping. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna go to my mapping widget and I'll simply scale it. And I'm gonna try to estimate to get that nice scaling effect. You can see now in real time how this is changing and what effects I'm getting. So I can actually even move this towards my object so I can better organize my scaling here. I'm gonna zoom in and you can see now I will try to guess similar scaling to this. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these, 4.5. So let's see. So yeah, this needs to be a little bit bigger, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, a little bit more. Okay, so something like this. Something like this. And let's say that I'm happy with this. I may think that this is a little bit, the lines are a little bit too thick. So if you want to make the lines a little bit thinner, let's go to our material and let's adjust the initial width here from 0.015. Let's put it to 0 to make them even tinier. And now I think that's fine. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay, so you can see how we got that grid nice. Maybe what we can do is make the color a little bit less pronounced. So instead of being completely white, I want to put it like a little bit grayish, like so. And let's keep that. And I will see that the grayish color will also change. There it is. And yeah, this one is fine. And this one will be a little bit. Okay, so something like this. So you get the idea. You're trying to guess the correct tone that you want to have for your own diagram. And in addition to that, we also want to make this a little bit more reflective. So we can increase this just a tiny bit. And last thing I will do, I'll change this color to have a little bit more grayish tone. And I think that would be it. Okay, so something like this. Now I'm happy with how it looks. So now if I zoom out, you will see that I have my grid already ready. And we can move on and do other materials. I'm gonna hit stop and let's see what else we need to do. So obviously we need to create a material for our lake here and also for our ground. All these objects will remain white, and the last thing we need to do is populate the trees and people on these surfaces. So first let's create a material for the ground. I'm going to select all of these guys and I'm going to isolate them, and I will go to, I'll actually leave the ground and I will go to the material. And let's create another material. I'm gonna simply take one of these materials here that Rhino Next has, that Vray Next has, sorry. So let's go with, let's go with this one. I'm gonna edit the scene and I will simply select my object here and I will right click, apply to selection. Once that is applied, now I can see my material. I'm gonna isolate it and go to render view to see the mapping. So the mapping seems to be all right, but in case you want to change it and modify it, you can select the whole thing and you can say apply box mapping, and then we would be able to choose the mapping widget. So if I type, let's say 10 by 10 by 10 and enter, you will see that this will become very like tiny, and that's not what we want. So we need to replace it, and we're going to use this widget and we're going to increase it. So let's increase it like this, and I'm going to rotate it 90, and now I can also stretch it and bring it as it was before. Okay, so you get the idea. So we have nice wood grain effect for our ground. And if you're happy with that, then we can move on. And now let's create the material for our object. I'm gonna isolate it again. So let's hide these guys. And I'm simply going to my V-Ray material editor, right click, generic, and we're going to type here white. And I'm simply going to use diffuse color, white diffuse color, and that's going to be enough for our material. And I'm going to add it slightly reflective material, something like this. And once that is done, I'm going to select everything, right click, and apply to selection. Now that's done. And we also need to do the same thing to our trees and our people here. We'll create red color. So I'm gonna duplicate this one and I'm gonna call it red. And let's change the diffuse, something like this. And I will increase a little bit the reflection and add a little bit of reflection glossiness. Okay. So once I'm happy with that, I'll select all of these guys and I will right click, apply to selection. Now they're all red. So now we also need to do the water. So the water will be this area here. And let's choose the liquid material here. And let's choose one of these waves here. So I will go with this one, add to scene, and I will apply it here, right click, apply to selection. The last thing that we want to change here is we want to change the opacity. We want this to be a little bit transparent. So let's bring it to 0.3, something like this. And let's change the diffuse color to something darkish blue, something like this. Okay. And I think that would work. And once again, let's apply it. And now let's do another rendering test. So I'm gonna simply click here and let's see what we got so far. Okay, so you can see that we already have that applied. We have the wood, we have the red color for our people and trees, and we also have that bluish water material. However, if you take a look at this image, you can see how my wood is actually a little bit white. It's not that pronounced. So if you want to modify that, we can go to the wood material, and here under the texture in diffuse, under color manipulation, we can change the color offset a little bit and make it a bit whiter, like so. And I can see that I'm getting that result that I have here also. All right, and once that is done, we're ready to move on. We're ready to play around with lighting. So you can see that this lighting is a little bit pale. It's not that effective. So we want to use Vray Dome Light with HDRI image. So we're simply going to click here and use Dome Light. And I'm gonna click here, and that will open up my window. And I will just choose my HDRI image that I previously downloaded from this website that's called HDRIHeaven. If you scroll down, you can browse here a lot of HDRI images. And for this particular example, since we wanted to have soft shadows, we don't want to have strict shadows, then I was going for something that is more like overcast HDRI. So I clicked here on overcast, and you can get any of these that have white clouds and they don't have a very pronounced sunlight. I highly suggest you check this website out, and it support the author. Has also the Patreon. He's doing all of this for free, so I really want to thank him for that. And once we have our dome light loaded here under the texture, now you can see how the texture would look like. And now we can test and we can see what we're gonna get when we click on render. So let's do render one more time. And now you will see that all of this will change, and you can see how we have different kind of atmosphere now. It's a little bit, it has a little bit more clarity and shadows, and that's exactly what we're going for. In case you want to increase this, you can simply change the intensity from 1 to, let's say, 1.2 to increase a little bit the the intensity of the clouds, and I will see it will become a little bit brighter. So that's just the way that you can control the lighting in the scene and get very cool soft shadows. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you is how you can populate quickly. Let's first stop this. So I'm gonna open my V-Ray frame buffer, stop it from here. And how do you populate all of this trees and people on these surfaces without having to do this manually? To do that, we need to simply, let me just move this away. So you want to first have the surfaces where you want to have your trees populated. So in our case here, we want to have trees here and here, and then we want to have people on this surface. And with that, let's open up Grasshopper and let's see how we can quickly do this in Grasshopper. All right, so we opened up our definition for this particular example, and you can see here we have geometry and brep. I'm going to clear all of these guys, all of these values, and now I'm going to show you how we can manipulate this, how we can quickly create, how can we populate the surface with our models here. So first off, I will try with this side and then with this side. We can do both of them at the same time, but let's just go one by one. I'm going to click on my surface here where I want my trees to be. I'm going to click here on brep, right click, set one brep, and I'm going to select my trees here and then right click on geometry, set multiple geometries, and you will see that I will have my trees populated right there on my surface. They're even following the Z direction, which is great. So right now here, what I can do, I can actually change the offset of how close I want these trees to appear near the edge. So this is where you change that. You can see that now they're moving closer inside. Then I can also change here the randomness of the position. So I can change the randomness here. You can see how they are changing the positions. And then I can also change the number of units. So I can change the amount of how many trees I want to see in my screen. And then here you can change the distribution. You can change how within each of these units they are changing within themselves, like so, because we have three different ones. And then also you can change here the rotation. So if you change this number, you can see how they're rotating and they're changing around their axis. And the last thing here, of course, is random tree scaling. This is where you can control the scale and make them smaller, bigger, and so on. So with that, let's bake them, and let's put them on, let's say, trees layer and group them. And now we have them in our Rhino window, and I'm going to clear out the geometry from here and from here. And I'm going to do the same thing for this side. So I'm gonna say this is my brep, and I want to say these are my trees, set multiple trees, and I'm going to play around here with the randomness a little bit. Let me see, I'm gonna lower out the amount of units, something like this. Okay, so we have something like this on this side, and I'm happy with that. Let's go to bake this, and let's put it on the trees layer as well. And we're done with the trees. And now let's do the same thing. We can use the same definition for our people. So I'm going to clear the values here, clear the values one more time. And now I'm going to select my people here. I'm going to go to geometry, set multiple, and I'm going to click on this surface that I prepared before. And that's where my people will stand on. I'm gonna right click here, set one brep, a brep, and now you can see how I have people on top of this surface. And I want actually to have them a little bit more. I think they're not enough. So I can change the amount here, you can see. And I will change here the randomness of the positioning, and so on. So let's say that I'm happy with how this turned out. And then I'm simply going to, oh, maybe it's too many. Okay, something like this. And now I'm going to simply right click, bake, and let's put them on the people's layer. And we're done. And we can now bake this. I'm gonna hide this. Sorry, not bake, but apply materials too. So what we will do, we'll simply select all the trees. I'm going to go to the trees and people, right click, select objects. Let's go to our V-Ray material. The material should already be applied, but let's double check, right click, apply to selection, and let's do our rendering test. All right, and let's test to see what's the result that we got. All right, so there it is. You can see it's coming to life. So now I will render this in high resolution and show you the final result. Alright, so this was the final rendering. Hope that you like the tutorial. If you have any kind of questions, please put them down in the comment section below. And also, if you'd like to have these project files and all these models, you can get them by becoming our Patreon supporter. First link in the description. I would like to give a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you guys for supporting us to create these tutorials and have a high quality production. If you like this tutorial and if you'd like to see more of these, please let us know. And also make sure to subscribe and like this video as we publish new tutorials each week.